Well, color me amazed. 5,000 subscribers. 4,000 more than I had by the end of last year. I'm honestly stunned that this channel and my work is appreciated to this extent. I would like to thank all of you. The viewers, subscribers, Discord members, Patreon and Ko-fi supporters, artists and voice actors. Every single one of you is truly amazing. You are the reason why I continue to create and why I hope for one day to be able to live from my creative work. Now, I had planned it for quite a while to tell you a little bit about my past as a creator. And there is a lot to go through. My first writing attempt, my multiple failures to write a book, but those tales of my past I reserve for other big milestones, like 10 and 20k specials. Today, to celebrate the 5k milestone, I will tell you about how I started writing in English for the first time. More specifically, a fanfiction of sexy space babes. But before we begin, even though this might sound like a fun subject, there will be talk about some serious stuff, so don't be afraid to click away. That was your fair warning. Now, some background, both for the story and the reason why I was first interested in it. So, Sexy Space Babes, or Between Worlds, as it is known officially, is a story written by J.L. Williams, also known as Blue Fish Cake. SSB, as I will now call Sexy Space Babes, is a science fiction, romance, military, light erotica story. Yes, this is erotica with non-safe-for-work action in it. The plot is thus. The Earth has been conquered by the Shilvati Imperium. Shilvati being those 7 feet tall, purple, orc-looking space Amazons. Humanity is under their imperial boot. The hero of our story, Jason, while completely drunk, beat the ever-loving shit out of a member of Imperial Marines. Which, of course, means he is seen as a rebel and dissident to the Imperial authority. He is given a choice: prison or military service. He chooses military service, and shenanigans ensue from there. It's an entertaining story about fitting into an alien culture, species and gender discrimination, abuse of authority, incompetence of military leaders, romance and intrigue, with a bit of erotic scenes as a spice. The big joke is that the Sexy Space Babes are not aliens, but humans. Human men, more precisely. Apparently, all species in the galaxy have women as dominant gender. Not only that, women outnumber men to a significant degree, like 8 females to every 1 man. Meaning polygamy isn't just common, it's required for species' continuous survival. Humans, with our 1-to-1 gender ratio and dominant males, are a complete anomaly on galactic stage. And Jason, as a human and as a man, needs to adapt to reality where he is seen as a sexy primitive barbarian from so-called sex planet, surrounded by sexist women who want nothing else but a piece of his ass and more, while serving in authoritarian imperialist militaristic empire hell-bent on achieving their own manifest destiny, while convinced to their core that they are the good guys. While far from the best stories that Blue Fish Cake wrote, personally, I find his later stories, like Sexy Sect Babes, far more entertaining. It is worth a read, in my opinion at least, if you want to have a laugh and enjoy yourself. In more ways than one, that is. Now, you probably already reached obvious and false conclusion why me, Heretical Hatter, decided to read this story. And I'm sure some of you will call for my name to be changed to Horny Hatter. Sadly, the reason behind why I started reading SSB isn't that simple. Here comes the serious part of the video, so again, fair warning. Okay, to those who don't know, I'm a historian, and few years back I was writing my bachelor's thesis. It was about Soviet propaganda activities aimed at denying the Great Ukrainian Famine, years 1932-1933. Yeah. And I've chosen to write about this subject not that long before the current conflict in Eastern Europe. A cruelty of fate, I suppose. The reason why I've chosen such grim subject is, well, the roots of my family tree, from my father's side at least, reach to Ukraine and Crimea specifically. Apparently, one of my ancestors was a Tatar mercenary who served under King Jan III Sobieski during the famous Battle of Vienna. He had to impress someone because he was paid in land and minor noble title. The piece of land he was given was located in modern-day Ukraine. So while I have more Tatar than Ukrainian blood, Ukraine is the land my ancestors come from. That's why I wanted to write about Ukraine-related subject. More than that, I was always fascinated by propaganda and interested in history of the Soviet Union. So in the end, I decided to explore the horror of that genocide. The younger me was confident that I can handle this subject, that I can faithfully present the terrible thing that Soviets did to hide this crime against humanity. Oh, I've managed to do so, with flying colors, in fact. Professors congratulated me for the quality of my paper, but it wasn't easy. Reading about the horror of that time and place. You end up in really dark place after you read so many sources and examples about the famine, the abuse, the murder, the acts of cannibalism, about children disappearing in the middle of the night and their parents looking for them in butcher shops, about Western journalists paid by the Soviets to tell everyone that everything was just fine, like Walter Duranty, who got a Pulitzer Prize in 1932 for his reporting on the Soviet Union, just as Ukraine was being starved to death. The anger and despair you feel when you read about those fools paid by the Kremlin about the brave few who got to the truth and tried to spread it, only to fail. About your own nation, how my country, Poland, ignored the desperate pleas for help from Ukrainian people simply because they signed a non-aggression treaty with the Soviets. So they decided that antagonizing Moscow was against their best interests. When you see that the scale of this ethnic cleansing either approached or outgrew the mass slaughter of Holocaust, you lose much of your faith in humanity, in our species as a whole. I couldn't write anything for a very long time. I knew it was horrible, but because of my roots, that connection, it hurt even more. I ended up in a very dark place. Some nights I couldn't sleep. It's true what they say. Ignorance is a bliss. I'm better now. I managed to work through it. But at the time, I didn't see the light. I needed something, anything, to drag myself out of that dark place. And that's when, by chance, I found SSB and Humanity Fuck Yeah subreddit. I started reading not only sexy space babes, but also other stories, including Hunter or Huntress, which I loyally follow to this very day. And it helped. Reading those stories, so full of amusing scenes and entertaining ideas, helped me drag myself out of that dark place. Regain the will to write and create once more. After a time, I decided to join SSB Discord and found a welcoming, fun community of dorks and fun writers who knew they were writing in a sci-fi erotica universe and were neither ashamed nor afraid of simply enjoying themselves. And I needed that. So, one day, I opened my computer and started writing in English for the very first time. My very first SSB fanfic. And I kept writing stories for that universe for over 3 years. I wrote more than one fanfiction in that time, though none of them had a finale. First was Fire Within, then Fire Within, Fire Without, and finally Unbreakable. I even had an art for my character made for this one. I even attempted to rewrite some of my stories when they lost cohesion. I won't bore you with details, because frankly, they weren't great, and sooner or later I lost either interest in given storyline, or I got too ambitious and the story lost all cohesion. You know how a fan with too much time in his Star Wars vs Warhammer 40k series, which inspired my own Star Wars x Warhammer 40k narrative, tries to show the story from too many perspectives and showcase every idea he has for all to see? Yeah, the same problem. I made the very same mistakes. Sooner or later, those stories fell apart. Sometimes because I got a new idea, because I grew too ambitious, because I didn't have a solid idea for the future of a series, or because I tried to write more than one narrative story at a time. Besides, I was frankly goofing around. I started writing SSB partly as a joke, a way to train my English before I get to my original book I wrote in Polish, and decided to rewrite and partly remade it in English. In the end, as I said, I spent 3 years writing and reading SSB, being part of a community. I officially stepped away from SSB only in November last year, though the last of my chapters appeared a month before that. I was already running my YouTube channel, I finished Tau Empire Reimagined, was in the process of writing Damocles Gulf Crusade Rewrite, and in a day I was about to post my ATTE is absolutely horrible compared to Tau Vehicles video. I had barely 500 subscribers at the time, and I wasn't yet getting paid much for my work, but I found out that I prefer YouTube and audio-visual medium more than just pure writing. And you know, people actually enjoyed and interacted with my work here. I got more attention and appreciation for my work here than I ever did before. No small influence were Hayden Lumpkin and Marquismo, two amazing artists who provided art for my series and shared my passion. I realized, hell, there is future here, there is potential on YouTube, there is not much for me on Reddit, trying to write a niche sci-fi erotica fanfiction. So I stepped away from SSB completely. Though I still read new stories Blue Fishcake comes up with, as well as a few fan writers whose work I very much enjoy. I also continue to read some humanity fuck yeah stories, namely Hunter or Huntress I mentioned before. It would be hard to abandon them completely after they unknowingly helped me drag myself out of a very dark place. Frankly, I think the main reason why I stayed with SSB this long was the community, full of creative fan fiction writers who use this setting to write everything from hot romance to insane rebel stories where blood of aliens paints the soil. It's a very chaotic, very creative community, and I remember the time when I was its active member fondly. It would be a lie of a century if I said that I didn't enjoy my stay there. And more importantly, I learned much from these authors and their stories. I can even tell you that more than a few species that you see in my Tau Empire Reimagined series started as a species I came up with for my SSB fanfiction. Yes, Mechians are on that list, as well as few others. So my past as a sexy space babes fanfiction writer is still present in my current work, even if it's not obvious at the first glance. Anyway, I think that's basically it. A short story about my past and how I, for something like 3 years, was writing sci-fi erotica for fun. Links to the original Sexy Space Babe story, as well as my old fanfiction, available in the description and pinned comment below. Just remember, it's far from my best writing, it's not very cohesive, and none of those stories have an ending. All were abandoned or fell apart. But if you want to have a laugh reading my initial attempts at writing in not my native language, be my guest. I'm not afraid to be the butt end of a joke from time to time. I had fun writing them, and I hope you will have fun reading them if you decide to do so. But I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most heretical day. Ta-ta!